I was there on the field when the cannon roared wild. Took a blast for old Dan, flew a mile with a smile. Oh, I'm the leg that left the fray. General Dan's lost friend, still dancing today. Life without a thigh feels like a wild ride. Got a story to tell about my Civil War pride. Oh, I'm the leg that left the fray. General Dan's lost friend, still dancing today. In a glass case now, where we are displayed, history's oddity, legs got in May. So if you find yourself in DC or the like, pay a visit to me, Dan's Half Wild Fight. General Dan's lost friend, still dancing today. Life without a thigh feels like a wild ride. I got a story to tell about my Civil War pride. Oh, I'm the leg that left the fray. General Dan's lost friend, still dancing today. In a glass case now, where we are displayed, history's oddity, legs got in May. So if you find yourself in DC or the like, pay a visit to me, Dan's Half Wild Fight. Fight.
Yo, Woodrow Wilson, with that segregation ain't no friend of mine. Presidency tainted with your dark and twisted paradigm. Progressive on the surface, but your heart's a different kind. Hypocritical, historical, your legacy's a blind to die. Got your 14 points, but it's all for show. Racial injustice, man, you really took us. Wilson can't forgive your sins. Progress stained in lies, you lose this spin. No place in history where you can win. Academic background, still you play this all like fools. Preaching world peace, but back home you change your rules. League of Nations, nah, we ain't cool. Your racism's a play. You taught it in schools. Trust busted, self-trusted. Your legacy is twisted. A contradiction in terms. Justice you resisted. Wilson can't forgive your sins. Segregation is hard. Where do we begin? Progress stained in lies. You lose this spin. No place in history where you can win. Looking back to time, your flaws we unravel. A leader with deceit, your path we gon' travel. Truth buried deep in lies is found. In history's eyes, you can't turn it around. Wilson can't forgive your sins. Segregation is hard, where do we begin? Progress stained in lies, you lose this spin. No place in history where you can win.
All right, let's get going, shall we? A little intro there for you. How's everybody doing? Those songs are all available over on Songs of History. That's where I'm putting all the music like that I'm putting together, and the really good ones like the Iron Brigade song, which I'm really proud of how that one turned out. Those are going up on streaming services, so that one is up on the streaming services already. It's been getting a lot of plays on Spotify, actually, surprisingly, and I jam to it in my car sometimes too. I'm really happy with that one. So I have been queuing up some of the questions already, so we can dive right into these. And I apologize if I don't see yours. I'll try to see as many of these as I can. Steve put this one in while we were waiting to get started. You've been talking a bit about mental health recently. Do you have a place that you go to that you find calming? As you may have seen if you follow me on Instagram, going for a walk seems to be pretty calming for me. I live in a pretty quiet neighborhood. I live in a very rural area. That was intentional because I needed somewhere that was quiet enough that my neighbors, it's not that I don't want to be near my neighbors, but I need the neighbors to be far enough apart so that when I'm recording, them cutting the grass or something doesn't like mess with my ability to be able to record. So living somewhere a little more rural helps with that, though it's a bit of a drive for my kids to get to school, about 25 minutes. But so walking up and down the street here, it's pretty quiet, and I really enjoy just getting out and walking. So that helps a lot for me personally. So a couple of you, Smiley Town, I know you did a super chat as well, and thank you for that. Have I seen the interview? I didn't watch the interview, but I've read enough about it. And my friend JD, I think, is it tomorrow, JD, if you're still in the chat, that he's actually going to have someone on, and they're going to be addressing this. And I would recommend you go to the History Underground and watch their stream. They're gonna address this topic. And what do I make of it? I think he's an idiot. He didn't just say that Churchill was also a villain. He actually, at least on the social media posts that I saw from him, said that Churchill was the villain of World War II. And that's nuts. Absolutely nuts. I'm not saying Churchill was perfect, but villain, no. Maybe he is a villain to some people. But yeah, so JD said tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central, so that it'd be 2 p.m. U.S. time, 7 p.m. London time, 8 o'clock Central European time. Check out the History Underground. They're going to be covering that topic in depth. That'll be a good place to do that. Antonin, can't make it to the live stream. You have a question. Favorite songs of the Civil War? Definitely my favorite Union song is Battle Hymn of the Republic. That's one of my all-time favorite songs, period. And, Lee Greenwood has a phenomenal version of Battle Hymn of the Republic that I really like. Confederate songs, I really like When Johnny Comes Marching Home. That's probably my favorite. The Bonnie Blue Flag's a pretty solid song as well. Crypto. What are my thoughts on the recent surge in people who believe conspiracy theories? It's, for me, it's even deeper than that. It's not so much conspiracy theories. What really bothers me is there seems to be a segment of the population that their attitude now seems to be that if most people believe it's true, then it's probably not true. And that is just a ridiculous argument to make. I had a debate with somebody about this topic the other day who basically said that if most historians wrote that something happened a certain way, that their belief was it didn't happen that way. And that just boggles the mind that we are at the place where people are so mistrustful. But here's the thing about that. If it reinforces what someone already believes, then they tend to believe it without the same kind of proof, right? So I think there's a small percentage of the population that just will accept anything as true if it confirms what they want to be true. And that's a scary place to be, but that's, I think, kind of where we're at. So I don't like it at all that that's where we are. Any tips for a trip to Virginia and DC? Oh man, there's so much to see. DC, definitely do Arlington National Cemetery, the American History Museum, the Air and Space Museum. The Holocaust Museum is fantastic as well. Fantastic is the wrong word. It's a powerful experience, and it's one that you should experience. Virginia, then you can go right outside of DC and get to some great Civil War battlefields. Manassas, Fredericksburg is like a little over an hour away. And then right there by Fredericksburg, you've got Chancellorsville and the Wilderness and Spotsylvania. Some really, really good stuff right there. So, all right, I'm getting caught up here. We've got a lot of super chats already. You're from the UK and you want to visit America outside of just New York City and Orlando. That's a good idea because if you've ever been to London in the UK, you know that London is not the rest of the UK. It's London. And New York's the same way. New York City is so different than, say, where I live in Ohio. So top place to recommend to see in Ohio, Cleveland. Cleveland's got a lot of history. You got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You've got Garfield's President Garfield's house right outside of the city. You've got Lakeview Cemetery, where some of the most famous Ohioans are buried. Columbus is a great city as well. What time period do I enjoy the most? American Civil War, World War I, British medieval history. What did I think of the debate? I think Trump got his butt kicked, and they're trying to deflect from Trump getting his butt kicked by putting all the focus on the moderators. The moderators are not why Trump got his butt kicked. It's because he was going up against someone who knew how to debate, who had prepared for the debate, and baited him, and he took the bait every single time. There was zero discipline on his part. All he needed to do, because if you look at the polls, the momentum had kind of stopped for Kamala Harris. She got this kind of weird momentum thing because she came in so late in the game as the nominee, and it had kind of stopped, and the race had basically balanced out to where, if you believe the polls, she's maybe a point or two ahead, but in the battleground states, it's basically dead even. All he had to do was not be crazy and not take the bait. And the problem is, and this isn't a judgment on whether it's true or not, but the perception is, and I think she reinforced this, she mentioned this, that if she can get under his skin and bait him the way that she did, then why can't we assume that other world leaders like Putin are going to do the same thing? And so I think that hurt him a lot, but I still think it's going to be a really close race. So I don't think it really changed a whole lot. It might have moved a few people off the fence. Do I think there should be a different standard of how political debates are held? Much like when we talked about the gerrymandering in that video that I did on gerrymandering, about how no matter what you do, somebody's not going to like the way it's done. I think that's probably the same with debates, that no matter what we do and how we do it, somebody's going to complain and say they didn't like it being done that way. So I'm not sure there is a good solution for that. Canadian citizen, thank you for that. What's the main reason to follow the Whigs' ideological incoherence and trying to placate Northern and Southern interests? Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think they were too wishy-washy and they didn't take a firm stand because they were. I think they were just trying to figure out who they were. And that's why you see in the aftermath of that, some of the Whigs became Republicans, others kind of didn't. Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty accurate assessment of it. Ryan, thank you for that. The Canadians coming in today. Those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. In your opinion, where do you see this axiom being illustrated in the near future, if at all? Wow, that's a deep question right there. I think as a country, we need to figure out who we are. I think we're in a place where we're in the middle of some political upheaval and a reshuffling of the political parties. We're undergoing a party system change. I've talked about these before. Party systems, basically every couple of generations, the parties, people talk about a party switch, but that's not really what happens. The parties are constantly evolving. The electorate's constantly changing based on the issues. And I think we're undergoing one of those right now. And it'll be interesting to see where we come out on the other side of it all. And hopefully we learn how to compromise better than we did in the first half of the 19th century. I think that's where we're kind of at right now, is we're at another one of those places where we are divided in such a way that I'm curious to see how that's going to resolve itself. Who would have been better president, Rockefeller or Perot? Rockefeller or Perot? Rockefeller is an Ohioan, so I mean, my heart tells me that, but I don't know much about his political leanings like I do with Perot. I think Perot would have been a very good president, and I think it would have opened up the world of third-party candidates if Perot could have been elected, and I think that would have been a good thing for our country. So I would have liked to see Perot get elected. American Nerd, that Iron Brigade song slapped hard. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I did use AI to make the song, but I wrote most of the lyrics for that one, because one of the things you find when you start playing around with AI music is that even if you give it very specific prompts about what you want, it tends to be very generic with the lyrics. And since I've written a lot of songs in my life, I wrote a lot of the lyrics for that song myself, and then I plugged those lyrics into the song generator and ran it through until I got a style of song that I really liked. And I love the chorus for that. It was actually originally very different, and I rewrote the chorus, and it came out pretty good, I think. I'm not sure. Yeah, that was Smiley Town. Yeah, that was the one I answered earlier. Thank you for that. May Woodrow Wilson rot and HE double hockey sticks. Well, as a Christian, I hope that he repented of his sins and is not, in fact, there. But all right. Adnef, thank you for that. Norwegian super chat. Yes, I need to get to Norway sometime. I was watching again one of my all-time favorite clips from a movie is in The King's Choice, the scene of the sinking of the Blucher, which is just so good. The tension and the lighting and the music was really good. What moment from the Trump-Harris debate, if you had to pick one, would be on your presidential debate moments list? I didn't actually watch the debate. I haven't watched presidential debates probably for about 10 or 12 years. I am to an unhealthy degree, I'm a conflict avoider. And so when I watch those debates and they start bickering and talking over each other, I can't stand it. I can't watch it. So I've just stopped watching debates. And what I do is I get online and I read the commentary on a bunch of different sites of people kind of in real time talking about what's going on. But yeah, they're eating cats and dogs. The concepts of a plan seems to be the one that's going to have, I think, the most long-term sticking power from what Trump said. But the eating cats and dogs thing in the short term, it's a mess. Listen, I'm from Ohio. I'm not from that part of Ohio. Springfield, Ohio. We have like 3 Springfields in Ohio, but the one in this case is the city of Springfield, which is near Dayton. So it's about 4 hours from me. It's also our governor's hometown. Mike DeWine's from Springfield. They had to like put their schools on lockdown, and this is the problem that I have with some of Donald Trump's rhetoric. And he's not the only one who has done this stuff, because I think that some of the rhetoric that has been directed toward Trump also has caused problems, like the assassination attempt. But when he starts throwing that stuff out there, like, people believe it without really questioning it. And so I saw everybody sharing the video, the police body cam footage of the woman who had eaten a cat. That didn't happen in Springfield, and it wasn't a Haitian immigrant. It was an American-born and raised woman in Canton, which is like 45 minutes. I was in Canton this morning, actually. It's like 45 minutes from me. It's in Northeast Ohio. It's a complete other end of the state, and it was not an immigrant who did that. And that's literally the only example in the news of that happening. But he says it, and everyone just believes it. And if you question it, people say, well, there's the media again questioning that stuff. And unfortunately, there are real world effects of saying stuff like that, to where there are people making threats. And listen, there is a real problem in Springfield. And it's not just because there are Haitian immigrants there. By and large, these are good people who are just trying to do their best and are a net positive to our community. But you add 20,000 people, foreign-born people, who many of whom don't speak the language, to a town of 50,000 people in a couple of years. That is a major, major logistical issue. You've got the schools now have to deal with hundreds of new students, which means they have to hire a bunch of new teachers. A bunch of these students don't speak English. You've got people getting jobs and they don't speak English, and there's been some issues with a lot of them, like not really being able to drive, and some accidents happening. So the governor has stepped in and freed up some funds to help the city of Springfield to deal with some of that stuff. And so what they don't need is all the outside attention, especially on stuff that really isn't true. They need some help with the logistics and all of that, and the infrastructure, just because of how many immigrants have come into that one town. I kind of wish they had been spread out more than they were. But anyway, actually, Will, thank you for that. American Nerd, your favorite actress, Jenna Ortega, recently said she would love to play Joan of Arc. Isn't she in the the new Beetlejuice movie, which I've been hearing good things about. I want to go see that sometime. Yeah, as long as Ridley Scott ain't directing, that's right. I actually passed on my way. My son's the reason I was in Canton today is because my son had a game in Massillon, which is like right on the outskirts of Canton. You drive right past the NFL Hall of Fame. It's like 5 miles past the Hall of Fame. And there's a church on the route to the game today that was St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church. I'd love to see a good movie. There have been movies about Joan of Arc, but I'd love to see a good one that's not directed by Ridley Scott. Top 3 soccer stadiums you've been to, and top 3 are the ones you want to get to. I haven't been to a lot. Number 1, Lower.com Field in Columbus, where the Columbus Crew play. The atmosphere there is unreal. None of the other games I've been to. Listen, I haven't been to a lot of professional games. I've been to Wrexham to see Wrexham play. Stoke Kairos, the race course they call it. I've been to the Hawthorns where West Brom play. I've been to Craven Cottage where Fulham plays. And so if I'm ranking those, I would say that in terms of the atmosphere and the stadium, Lower.com Field, number 1, incredible atmosphere. Crowd really into it, and it's loud, and it's a nice stadium. The Hawthorns would be second for me. And then probably the race course, which is kind of an old school one. But I'm going to be going to some more this fall. I'm trying to get to Ibrox. I've been to Ibrox Stadium, but not for a game. But I'm trying to get to Ibrox Stadium, see Rangers play, and I'm going to go see the team that I'm a part owner of, the Caledonian Braves, which are in the 5th tier of the Scottish Pyramid. And actually, I'm also a player sponsor for Reg McLaren, who is one of their strikers, and he was the player of the game today. So that was pretty cool. Did the debate affect my vote? No, because I'm already not voting for either one of them, and that just confirmed. I can't vote for Trump based on I just don't. He's just too volatile and too I don't know what he's going to do, and I just don't think he would represent our country well. And I just disagree with Kamala Harris on too many issues to ever vote for her. So I'm a man without a vote right now. Really, that's just the way it's going to be. I can't see anything happening between now and Election Day that's going to change my mind on that. Charlie Voltaire once said, I believe Churchill was the greatest Brit. I think he's in that conversation. I think he's been voted as such by the British people. What I said King Alfred was greater. They're different eras. It's so hard to say. Personally, I think probably Shakespeare is my number 1. And by the way, speaking of Shakespeare, tomorrow, you won't see it tomorrow, but I'm trying to record a bunch of stuff because I'm going to England this week. And I'm going to be in Cambridge later this week. I'm going to be going on a tour with a bunch of the actors. I think 9 actors from Masters of the Air on Friday and Saturday of next week. And so we'll be in Cambridge. It looks like the weather's going to be pretty good too. But so I'm recording a bunch of stuff ahead of time for everybody to watch while we're gone. And one of the things we're recording tomorrow, we're going to record my daughter and I are going to do a Shakespeare insult competition. And my sons are going to be the ones who vote on who wins. So each round, she'll insult me with one of Shakespeare's insults. I'll insult her. And then we'll have a round where my one son votes on who he thinks won each one, and then my other son, and we'll see who wins. So it'll be a lot of fun. We're going to record that tomorrow, though. So I would say maybe Shakespeare would be for me. But King Alfred the Great, certainly needs to be in that conversation. So I'm trying to keep up with the chat the best I can. So just so you guys know how this works, when I get a lot of super chats, the thing is that I use something called StreamYard, which is how you see the stuff pop up, and it automatically stars all of the super chats. So I see those pop up first. That's why very often when there's a lot of super chats, that's really all I get to. I pre-starred some of the chats before we started so that I was able to see those, but unfortunately, until I get through all the super chats, I can't even really look at the other chat because there's 700 people in the comment section. So I just can't keep up with all of them really any better than that. So I apologize in advance if I don't get to your question. What would be worse, one of your children dating a Michigan State or a Wilson fan? Michigan State, I have no issue with. Michigan State's not the problem. It would be Michigan that would be the problem. I think I'd rather, though, that one of my kids dated a Michigan fan than a Wilson fan. I can forgive being a Michigan fan, especially if you're from Michigan. I have friends who are Michigan fans. So, that's a friendly rivalry. If you're a Wilson fan, well, that tells me a little something about your character. So, but no, Michigan State fans actually hate Michigan as much as Ohio State fans do. So, what do I agree with liberals on? Let's see. So, gay rights. So I would definitely agree with. I've covered this topic before, but on the topic of gay marriage, I think it was the right decision to legalize same-sex marriage, just because the government is involved in marriage, which I just don't think the government should be involved in marriages at all. But I understand because the government has given certain protections and certain status, certain legal ramifications of marriage. From that standpoint, I think it was the right decision to allow people to enter into that kind of contract, that government contract, whether they're a same-sex or heterosexual couple. So beyond that, I am probably a little bit more left when it comes to guns than most conservatives are. I'm certainly not an NRA guy, like from the standpoint that there should be no restrictions whatsoever on guns, period. I think that's crazy. We have restrictions on speech. We have restrictions on guns, as we should. You can, just because something is a constitutional right doesn't mean you can't have reasonable safeguards around that constitutional right. The right to vote is a constitutional right. There's some people who don't have that right. You have to be 18 to have that right. You have to register to have that right. Here in Ohio, you have to show a photo ID in order to exercise that right. I think those are reasonable things. And I think that reasonable restrictions on gun ownership, especially if there's been due process, especially if someone through due process has been determined that, hey, you probably don't get that right. Convicted felons many times don't have the right to own a firearm. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine with those kinds of things. I'm on one of my work breaks now. I want to ask, what is your favorite flag from a nation that no longer exists? Wow. That's a great question. Let me think about that for a minute. So by the way, I see JP, you just said something about the Springfield stuff. I talked about that just a little bit. So if you rewind on that a little bit. Wow. I'm thinking about this. I mean, Texas is cool. Holy Roman Empire. Oh, that might be a good one. Yeah. Holy Roman Empire is a pretty solid flag. I think I might have to go with that. In fact, I'll pull it up for you guys so we can see that here. Hold on one second. There you go. That's a pretty solid flag right there. I think I could go with that as a good flag. Lithuanian Commonwealth flag. Let's look at that one. It's all right. It's not bad. I still think, though, my favorite national flag right now, just because I love the color scheme, is Estonia. I love that flag. I really do. I love those colors. You don't see those colors on flags very often. So I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Estonia's flag. Excuse me. JD over here trying to kill the channel. Let's pull up a CGP Grey video and do a live reaction. Yes. Oh man. So you plan to visit Italy next year? Hey, me too. I'm going back to Italy in January, and we're doing a group tour in April. Pompeii and Vatican City. Any tips? I think Harris is probably a slight favorite to win, but I still think it's going to be a super close election. It's going to come down to a handful of states. Definitely check out Pompeii. I would say give yourself 2 days in Pompeii. We were there for 1 day. It wasn't nearly enough time. Vatican, if you want to go down, I haven't gotten to yet, but I'm going to do it in January. If you want to go down into the necropolis and see some of the stuff down there, they only do like 250 tickets a day. So you got to book it months in advance if you want to do that under St. Peter's, but definitely worth it. Sistine Chapel, I was a little bit underwhelmed by. It might have had something to do with the fact that we were stuffed in like sardines and you had to like basically stand like this, scrunched in, and just look up at the ceiling and be like, oh, okay, I've seen it now, and then walk out. Honestly, I saw churches in Rome, that were far more amazing than the Sistine Chapel. Wasn't really impressed by the Sistine Chapel, but St. Peter's definitely worth it. They didn't call out Kamala for lying about no troops in active combat zones. Felt very one-sided. Yeah, you know what? All of that may be true, but the bottom line is that the damage that was done to Trump in that debate came primarily from himself. We would be able to talk about that stuff if he hadn't. I talked a lot in my video about, like, in looking at past debates, about unforced errors, where, like, it's one thing if your opponent just gets the best of you because they debate better than you. It's quite another that you just shoot yourself in the foot. And that's what Trump did a lot in that debate. So whether that's true or not, that may be the case, but he did plenty of damage to himself in that had nothing to do with whether or not they were fact checking her. Jeremy, thank you for that. You're 27. You have an Ancestry.com tree you ran since you were 12. Has 90,000 people. Dang, I thought mine with 36,000 people was big. How I got interested in genealogy. Yeah, so how that started for me is I was in high school, and my best friend's dad he was really into history, and he and I would share a lot. My best friend's dad, her dad, and I would talk a lot about history, and he didn't have any sons. So none of his daughters he had 3 daughters. None of them were really into history. So we bonded over that a lot. And he did their family tree, and I thought it sounded really cool. And I got really into it, and I've been obsessed with it ever since. And I've had a lot of surprising discoveries. But the one I talk about the most is discovering that one of my dad's ancestors captured and hanged one of my mom's ancestors during the Revolutionary War. I don't know if anything tops that. Spiky, thank you for that. Your great granddad was from Ukraine, but you know nothing about him. So here's the tricky part about someone being from Ukraine. They could have been from Ukraine, but at the time they lived there, it might not have been Ukraine. It could have been the Russian Empire. It could have been the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It could have been part of Romania. So you might have to look at other countries' records in order to find them. So a great example of this in researching my kids' family tree, their great-grandfather, his parents were born in Hungary, in northern Hungary, right near the border of Slovakia. But at the time that they lived there and the time they came to the United States, it was Austria-Hungary. And in a lot of the records, it actually says that they were from Austria. But then you look at the language they spoke, and it says Magyar, which is Hungarian. And so that's how we knew, even though it said Austria, they weren't really from Austria. They were from Hungary. And so we focused on that, and we were able to narrow it down. So sometimes you have to look at where they came from in terms of what country was a part of then. The Red Baron, famous German figure, was born in a town called Breslau that's now in Poland. But at the time, it was part of Prussia. But now it's in Poland. So it makes it difficult sometimes to research based on that stuff. Any good books to recommend on the Battle of Chickamauga? None I can specifically think of on that battle. I don't know if I've read one on Chickamauga, actually, now that I think about it. That's a great question. If anybody has any recommendations for good books that you've read on Chickamauga, put it in the chat. I need to do that. But right now I'm actually reading a book on Tombstone and the Old West, because I'm planning on making a trip at some point next year out to Tombstone. My mom lives in Tucson, which is not far from there. Go visit my mom and then head over to Tombstone, do some videos there. And I'm also reading a German memoir of World War I, because I'm going to be in Belgium in late January, and I'm going to try to get over to Mons and some of the battlefields, the early battlefields of World War I, and do some more stuff from the German perspective. Am I going to do more content about the Crusades? Absolutely. And speaking of that, like the Holy Land and that area, this is kind of cool, and you'll hear more about this as we go along. I had a guy named Muhammad reach out to me from a travel company that I think is connected to the Jordanian government. And they saw that I was hosting group tours, including the one going to Egypt here in March, and reached out and wanted to know if I was interested in coming to Jordan for 8 days. The idea being that I would be part of a group tour that's like other influencers and things like that, because they want us to then host tours to Jordan. So they're hoping by bringing us out there that we'll think, wow, this is amazing. This looks really cool. I want to bring people here. So going to Petra, going to the place where Jesus was baptized, the Dead Sea, that kind of stuff. So I'm working on scheduling that, but it looks like I'm going to Jordan in 2025. So that'll be pretty cool. I'm already going to Egypt. So that's, it's going to be an exciting time. Hey, Chris, I live in Wales. Love the channel. Awesome. I love Wales. Who do I think is the most underrated monarch of England, Britain? Underrated. Let me think about that for a second. I don't think George VI gets enough credit, but he's getting there. I think George III was a lot better than people give him credit for, because all people, especially in the United States, when people hear George III, all they think of is, you lost the colonies, you suck. But he was actually a pretty good king for the years that he was mentally stable. So I think sometimes maybe he gets underrated a little bit. James I was pretty solid too. I'm going to go with James I as underrated monarch. Coming right after Elizabeth and coming right before his son, who ended up being beheaded. I think people forget about him sometimes. A lot of people would say Henry VII. Henry VII is one that I think maybe flies under the radar because of his more famous son. Damien, thank you for that. Got you into making their family tree. You found someone, Richard Tempest, Esquire of the body for Henry VII, knighted for Henry VIII, but died at Fleet Prison. Wow, that is a really cool story. Isn't it neat how you find people in your history who are connected to those really famous moments? Like, you know, most of us aren't descended from Henry VII. So a lot of people are, but all of us probably have an ancestor that was somehow connected to Henry VII if we have English ancestry. So that's really, really cool. Does overpopulation concern me? No. Have you seen parts of this country? It is empty. I mean, really, really empty. We got plenty of room. I'm not concerned about that. As long as we can keep up with the resources as far as food and water go, which we have ways to do that, I'm not too worried. Not yet, anyway. I have been to Hartford, Connecticut. It's been a while, but I was there. I haven't really seen much of Hartford. I walked around New Haven for a while, but I've only been to Hartford just to kind of fly in and drive through. American politics are depressing. Quit asking about it. That's fair. I agree. Any update on a possible book, The Trumbull County Boys? So it's Trumbull, Trumbull. First of all, I'm impressed that you remembered me mentioning that. That is the working title, is Trumbull County Boys, because the company that I'm writing about, Company H of the 20th Ohio, the 20th Ohio was recruited almost completely out of central and western Ohio. A couple of counties, Knox County, Shelby County, and Delaware County, which are in central and western Ohio. And then one company of the regiment, Company H, was from Trumbull County, here where I live. I live in Mahoning County, which is just south of Trumbull. And so in a lot of the letters home, their company commander, the letters that he wrote to the hometown newspaper, the Warren Western Reserve Chronicle, he referred to them as the Trumbull County Boys. And so that's kind of my working title for the book. It's coming along well. The research is basically done, and I've started writing a couple of the chapters. My very optimistic goal is that it will be ready to be published in about a year. So we'll see. But I'm very happy with how it's coming out. American Nerd, you think Trump did all right in the debate, even with him being baited? Yeah, I agree. I think the people who were already voting for Trump, it didn't affect them at all. They just doubled down. It might have pushed a few. There, listen, there's about a 10% of the electorate that's going to decide this election. And how many of them did it move off the fence one way or the other? It's hard to tell. No, Abraham Lincoln wasn't a third party, though. The Republican Party was the national opposition to the Democratic Party when Lincoln was nominated. It's just that in Lincoln's case, the Democrats split and ran another candidate. So there were actually three candidates. There were two Democrats, and then there was I think National Union ticket. Or it was like the Constitutional Union, I think it was called. It was John Bell was the guy's name. So I wouldn't consider Lincoln a third party. We've never elected really a third party president. Young Sinatra, thank you. Hope this doesn't come off in any way rude, but as a Christian and pastor, do you believe that the founding fathers and subsequent successors of them have made it to heaven? So here's the thing. Whenever you ask me that question, I will say that God is God and I'm not. That is my mantra. And actually, my upcoming video that I shot, if you follow me on Instagram, I do these like talks while I'm walking, kind of sharing some thoughts. And the next one is going to be about that idea that, listen, God is God and I'm not. So God knows the hearts of man. God knows where they stand with him. And I'm not going to pass judgment on anyone that I don't know personally and don't know the condition of their heart. So I hope that's not avoiding the answer. But God is a righteous judge, and I trust him to determine that, not me. But if you're asking me, were all the founding fathers Christians as I understand the Christian faith? No, they weren't all. I don't believe Thomas Jefferson was. Thomas Jefferson probably would have considered himself a Christian. But I think that the fundamental things that to me make someone a Christian, Thomas Jefferson did not have in terms of his belief. Now, but again, I'm not judging on whether or not he's in heaven. That's between him and God. A lot of Americans want ranked choice voting, but we've got ranked choice voting and we're stuck in a two-party system. Some places do. Alaska has that, I think. I don't know if anybody else does. Mr. Bison, wherever you live, do you have it, or are you in Alaska? So Jerry, I'm still scrolling through. I got a lot of super chats to get caught up on, but I did see a question come up about Jack the Ripper. Funny you mentioned that, because one of the videos that I recorded for this coming week is I did history. Is it History Buffs? Is that the name of the channel? The one that does all the videos, or the way he talks about the movies and the history behind them. From the one on From Hell. So that was one of the ones that I did. Donald Rumbelow's book, Jack the Ripper, The Complete Case Book. That's the one. If you're going to read one in-depth book on Jack the Ripper, that's the one. Lord of Nothing, Mr. Beat live streamed with Alan Lichtman a few days ago and said Harris would win. Yeah, I saw that stream. The 13 keys have mostly been true. I think there's at least one election where they didn't. And honestly, I'd say all bets are off. I think it's more likely that Kamala Harris wins than Donald Trump. Nothing will surprise me. Nothing will surprise me at all. So it'll be hard to say. Joe, thank you for that. American Nerd, U.S. politics of the 19th century is proof that compromises are always a failure. I wouldn't say always. A lot of time they are, and it depends on the topic and the subject. Yeah. Redeemed Zoomer. Yeah, I'll have to check out some more of his. Why do you think the USA doesn't have strong third parties compared to the UK? That's a great question. I think part of it has to do, one big difference between the US and the UK is how campaigns are funded. And there's so much money, and the campaigns just run forever. I think in the UK, you have like a 6-week campaign season, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but those are publicly funded, those campaigns, right? Or at least they're limited in how they're funded. But I think money's a big part of why the two main parties have such a stranglehold on the elections. Do I think the Browns should bite the bullet and get rid of Watson? I wish we would have kept Joe Flacco. Man, we were a different team with Flacco. I mean, he didn't do great in the playoffs, but yeah, I think we've seen enough. I mean, he was starting to do better right about the time he got hurt last year, but gosh, they can't wait 2 months into the season to pull the plug on him. If he plays like he did this last Sunday, then I think it's got to be done sooner rather than later. Favorite World War I general? Big fan of Arthur Currie, the Canadian general. Big fan of him. Foch is solid. There's a reason he ended up Allied Commander-in-Chief. I like Pershing a lot too as an American. But Arthur Currie for me from Canada was really, really good. I like him a lot. Hey, 1 month of being a member. Thank you. I appreciate that. How could we combat anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in this day and age? I see them both being really potent. Yeah, you know what? The problem is, and I think this is reinforced by social media, is that everybody loves their echo chamber. Steve Allenby's a good choice as well. Allenby's a really good general. I like that as an option as well. The problem is we love our echo chambers. Let me give you a prime example from my own personal life of what I wish more people could experience. And I've shared some of this story before. So most of you know that I'm a Christian. I'm a pastor, been in ministry since I was 20 years old. So that's more than half my life. You also know that I've been a speaker for Rachel's Challenge for the last 10 years. And every year in the summer, we go out for several days where we do training. We get updated on like changes to our programs and things like that. And then we help train our new presenters and kind of give them feedback and help them to prepare, because it's a daunting thing to go out and start traveling around the country and speaking to thousands of students a day. Especially when you have to learn like 7 different programs. So, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, I was roommates with a young man named Mihiar. Now, Mihiar was born in, I think he's from Sudan. And his mother had come to work in the Sudanese embassy in the United States, and he had grown up in the United States. So he's an American. I mean, he's through and through every bit as much an American as me. But he's Sudanese and he's Muslim. And so there we were. I'm sitting there in our hotel room that we share. I'm sitting on my bed reading my Bible, and Mihiar is off in the corner on the floor doing his prayers, facing toward Mecca. So very stark contrast between two people with very different backgrounds. Me, a Christian pastor, him a Muslim, him being Sudanese and African-American, me being, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And we could not have gotten along better. He was such an amazing, kind, friendly, generous guy. And I love that guy. And a lot of people would have gotten as far as he's Sudanese, came to America, and he's Muslim, and they would have already written him off just based on that. And they would miss out on an incredible human being that they could have had as a friend. I say all of that to say that we need to stop sitting in our echo chambers and get out a little more and get to know people who are different than us and realize, you know what? We're doing all this talk. There are a lot of people in the United States right now that think that all the Haitians, there's 20,000 Haitians in Springfield, Ohio. And the way that it's been sold to them that you would think that half of them are eating people's pets on a regular basis. And if they went to Springfield and started meeting those people, I bet you they'd find out these are actually pretty cool people. And these are people that are just trying to get by and do the best they can for their families. And I just think we need to get out more and interact with people and get to know people who are different than us and listen to people who believe differently than we do. You know what? I disagree with almost everything that Kamala Harris stands for, but living in Ohio, we get a lot of ads, right? And I've seen some of her presidential campaign ads, and they're good. And I found her very likable. And I don't agree with her, but she's not the person that I think a lot of people are spinning her as. Judge those things for yourself. Stop listening to what everybody tells you you're supposed to think. Stop listening to what everybody tells you is true and investigate and learn this stuff for yourself. You know what? The vast majority of Muslims are wonderful, generous, peace-loving, kind people. Don't judge them based on some psychos who flew planes into buildings. That doesn't represent all of them. No more than crusaders represent who I am as a Christian. Not every person who voted for Donald Trump is a MAGA nutcase. There are some, but most people are they just think it's what's best for the country. A lot of people are going to vote for Kamala Harris who love America. They're not like anti-patriotic people who want to see this country fail. That's just not who most people are. And we've gotten so bad at that, I think. All right, off my soapbox. Anyway, that's how I think we solve that, is you need to get to know these people before you judge them and decide who you think they are. Hello from the Netherlands, but in Prague, there's a statue of Woodrow Wilson. Yes, I did know that, and I'm going to find that statue when I go to Prague next year, because we're doing a group tour that's going to go to Prague. And I have a friend who lives there that I'm actually going to be in England with this coming week. Night King. Oh, scary name. Have you seen the video, The Tree That Started a War? I have not. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to take a picture of that, though, so I can remember that, because I want to look that up. That's kind of an interesting topic. Okay. I think I heard my son come in the door. He had a game today. We won 5-0. My poor son. So let me just, total aside, little personal life stuff going on. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I'm always posting about my son. It's soccer season, football for the rest of the world. So he plays defense, and kids played like 6 different positions in the last 3 years. And most of the preseason this year, he was training at center back. Well, then the season starts. First game of the season, they throw him at right back, which I think he's more comfortable at right back. He likes to be able to get forward. He actually started out as a center defensive mid his freshman year. So he likes being able to be more involved in the attack, and he gets to do that as a fullback. Whereas at center back, he's kind of more parked in the back. And so he started the first couple games of the season at right back. Well, then one of our starting center backs got suspended for a straight red card he got a couple of weeks ago. So then Caleb had to move back to center back to fill in for that kid, and they put one of the freshmen at right back. So then today, the kid was back from suspension, so Caleb got to move back to right back, and I think he was enjoying that. And then our other center back, the one that wasn't suspended, got hurt. So now Caleb had to move back to center back. Then the kid that filled in for him at right back got hurt. So they put another kid at right back. And then the other center back got a yellow card, which means he had to come out. In high school soccer in Ohio anyway, if you get a yellow card, you have to sit for a few minutes before you can come back in. So he just can't win. He just can't seem to get out of being center back. But we won 5-0. So it was good. Okay. Given how politically divided America is, don't you think it's time to stop having debates, as everyone's already made up their minds? Yeah, you know what? For a long time, we didn't have debates. After the 1960 debates with Kennedy and Nixon, we didn't have debates in 64, 68, or 72. They came back again in 76. I don't think they really are changing a lot of people's minds, though we've got a completely different candidate for the Democratic Party because of a debate. So, I mean, the debates definitely can have an impact, as we've seen. How do we fix the internetization of our discourse? That's a problem, because social media has, in the other problem besides it being an echo chamber is that, number one, we do make it an echo chamber. We only follow people that we want to follow, but it also makes the most extreme voices the loudest voices. I think it has given a platform to extremists that they didn't have before. So I think that has made things worse in a lot of ways. I don't know how to fix it. I wish I had an answer. You watched Oppenheimer? I did like it. It was a little bit too artsy for me, you know, like for the same reasons I wasn't crazy about Dunkirk. Sometimes I feel like filmmakers trying to be creative filmmakers, for me, I just want them to tell the story. And I know a lot of people like that, and a lot of people loved Oppenheimer. I thought it was a good movie. I probably would have enjoyed it more if it hadn't been so stylized, I guess. I don't know. Who do I personally believe is Jack the Ripper? So Tumbletee's a fascinating possibility. I don't think it's him, but I think Tumbletee is plausible. That said, my money's still on an unknown Polish Jew named Kosminski, not Aaron Kosminski, who was actually a suspect, but some other Kosminski that they knew about but never really nailed down. Young Sinatra, as a Christian man myself, I personally cannot see the Lord overseeing the horror that was chattel slavery. Overseeing, I mean, you know, in the end, this is a debate about free will, right? I mean, just because something is permitted does not mean it's condoned. And I know that's hard for a lot of people. But also, if you look in the Old Testament, a lot of the people that we consider to be godly people, they were participants in, it wasn't chattel slavery, but it was still slavery. So yeah, it's complicated for sure. Do you know how much about British prime ministerial history? Not a lot, not nearly enough. My personal favorite would be Pitt the Younger, played by Benedict Cumberbatch in the movie Amazing Grace, one of his first film roles. Wolfmaster 57, you're at uni in North Carolina and take some history electives. Classes and topics. I guess it depends on what topics you have available to you. But personally, I think you should take at least one class in a topic you know nothing about. Like one of the things you guys are going to have coming from me this week is a Sengoku Jidai series from Extra History. I did all 6 episodes of that. So I finished recording all that yesterday. So that'll be going up while I'm in England this week. I love that. I love learning about like Japanese history, stuff I know nothing about. It's so cool to dive into those kinds of things. So I would say for sure, take at least one on a topic you have no interest in and know nothing about. I don't know, take something on an African history course or something. And then find one you are really passionate about and take one on that. And do something on economic history, because that's a great lens to view the world through and view history through as economics. As a Bostonian, could we have won the American Revolution without him? Who's him? I don't know who him is. Are you talking about he from the videos? What's the guy's Starve Hard videos? I don't know. I don't know who you mean by that, Brendan. Sorry. Him. Somebody said in all capital letters in the chat. Some he lore. Everybody's been talking about Walter lore since my video talking about the groundhog that lives in my backyard. I'll watch the chat, and if somebody clarifies, oh, you meant to say Paul Revere. Okay. Without Paul Revere, I don't know. Paul Revere, he didn't really do that much for the cause of the revolution. Yeah, I mean, nah, he was a minor player in the revolution, really, honestly. Out of the last 3 election cycles, which one do you think is the most divided? This one. I think this one. But that could be recency bias on my part saying that. Reaction to the English monarchs a few days ago. I don't get how you, as an American and a fan of Napoleon, like George III. Why not? I mean, George III ain't my enemy. I like some of the British generals too. I mean, there were some pretty solid ones in there. Could we have won the Civil War without Dan Sickles' leg? We probably could have won the Civil War sooner without Dan Sickles. But no, not really. I don't think Sickles made that much of a difference one way or another. Ryan, there are ads running right now? Really? I didn't even know that ads would be running during a live stream. I apologize for that. I'm not sure why that's the case. Hope you're ready to watch FC Cincinnati beat down the Crew. Well, here's the problem. Do we have our players back? So the problem for Columbus right now is that half our best players are gone for the international break, or are they back? We had to play the last game without a freaking goalie. All of our goalies were out on the international break. So if they're back, we'll be okay. But it should be good. I'll be watching the game tonight for sure. Would I do a how I would vote in every election video? Yeah, that's something I would definitely do at some point, Nathan. I know Mr. Beat did one. Hey, listen, if you want to avoid ads, a great way to do that is do a YouTube membership. I mean, not a membership like person to me, but like, what do they call it? Like YouTube Premium or whatever. That's what I do. I pay for that every month. I never get ads. It's great. Hey, nice to hear an avid rewatcher of the Blucher scene from The King's Choice. Got early access to the same director's newest, Quisling's Last Days. Interesting. I definitely am going to come to Norway someday. Specifically, I want to go to the Drobak Sound where that happened. I really want to visit that area. Did I get a chance to see Mr. Terry's email, Professor What? Did he send me one today? If so, I didn't see it. Let me take a look. Yeah, I don't see one, but I'll go in and double check. All right, I'm going to ask you guys to start winding down on the super chats because otherwise I'm not going to get to all of them. So if you have a super chat, now's the last chance. The King's Choice was a movie, Lima, about Norway during World War II. Yeah, where are we at? Okay. Why isn't the Soviet Union portrayed in a worse light during World War II since they allied with Germany? Because in the end, they're probably more responsible than anyone for the defeat of Germany. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So they get a pass on a lot of the things they shouldn't get a pass on because they helped defeat Germany and contributed in blood more than anybody else to that cause. I think that's why. I want to write a book on Grant and the Klan, slavery in Virginia and Grand Columbia. Oh boy. Recommended length. Honestly, what I would tell you is the topic and the subject matter will determine the length. I think what you're going to find, much like I have when I've been writing, is that you'll start out wanting to do this much and you'll end up realizing you can really only cover that much. Find a niche, find a view of that others haven't talked about, and do that. And make it narrow. Make it a narrow focus, because I think you're going to find as you dig into some of these topics, there's a lot out there. Like I started out to write a book on the 20th Ohio Infantry, this a regiment of 1,000+ men. And as I started doing my research, I realized there was so much available information out there that I never was going to be able to cover it all adequately. And so I narrowed my focus to just one company of the 20th Ohio, because I realized I had so much material that I could still do an incredible book without having to cover 1,300 guys. And instead I'm only covering 130 guys. So just let the story and let the material dictate how long the book is. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer to that. I've read great books that were 30 hours long in an audiobook, and I've read great books that were 8 hours long in an audiobook. Can I do a book on the Nabateans and Jerish? Make a video. If there's a good video out there for me to cover on that, I will. So if you have a recommendation, opinion on the book Hillbilly Elegy, I've never read it. I can relate to it because I am someone who grew up in Ohio whose roots are in Appalachia. So I haven't seen the movie and I haven't read the book. So honestly, I don't have a strong opinion on it. I think it was directed by Ron Howard, wasn't it? Ray Gonzalez, thank you for that. Anthony Thomas, people tell me all the time that I look like Tony Romo, and I do not see it at all. I don't understand it. I never thought that. But honestly, every couple of days, somebody tells me I look like Tony Romo. Have you ever considered doing alternate history videos? Not really. There's enough stuff that I cover already that I don't have a strong enough interest in alternate history to do my own videos on it. Plus, there's a couple people who do that really well already, I think. All right, so I actually got a text question from my friend Sander from Sander VK History. If you guys don't follow his channel, definitely check it out. And his question was, how do I get closer to God? So I said, ask anything. And you guys know I do talk about my faith some on here. So for those of you who are interested in such things, that is a fantastic question. And that's something that I think takes a lifetime to experience. Number one, a lot of people say, oh, I wish God would speak to me. But as a Christian, I would say, well, he already has. We have 1,189 chapters of him speaking to us, 66 books of the Old and New Testament. So a great way to start to get closer to God is just to spend time reading the Bible. I would start with like the Gospel of John. It's a great place to start, or the letters, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John. Get quiet time. Christians talk about quiet time a lot, but it's true. It's hard to focus when you're surrounded by noise. So I would say take some time, set aside some time each day to pray, to read from the Bible, and just to ask God to speak to you. And I think he will. The Bible talks about him speaking in a still small voice. It's not noise. It's not loud. It's when we cut out all the distractions that we can focus. And I think that's a universal concept that's more than just religion. I think that's true in life. We can focus a lot better when we cut out the distractions and when we streamline and when we simplify. And then get yourself some friends. You already have some, I know, like me and JD, who are on that same journey ourselves. And just talk and share your doubts and your concerns. I know we had a conversation, Sander, about that when we were in Ypres in the cathedral a little bit. But one of the ways I get closer to God is by spending time with people that I want to be more like, because I know that they're closer to God. So I hope that helps. But we can talk more about that one-on-one sometime, Sander. So yeah, Vercingetorix beating Caesar. Minka, that's actually a really interesting topic that would be fascinating to cover. What hurts more, Lions Super Bowl or Michigan title? Michigan title. The Lions aren't a threat to me. They're not our big rivals. So I was actually very happy for the Lions, and I was rooting for them to win the Super Bowl this year. Asaf, longtime Israeli subscriber, want to thank you for years of amazing content. Quick question. What are your thoughts about the whole tenant media thing and Russian interference in politics? Listen, anybody who has money interferes in politics, I think. I don't know that there's an easy solution to that, to cut the money out of politics. But where there's money, there's influence. And the Russians are throwing a lot of money at people, and that's getting a lot of influence. And it's one of the unfortunate things is that 8 years ago, that was the big talking point. Was everybody was talking about that Trump won the election because of Russian interference, right? And it was BS at the time. But now it's true. And that's the problem, is that so many of the things that weren't really true then, people are actually making true now, because they're allowing it to be true. They're allowing Russia to influence the election in ways they didn't, the way that we accused them of before. Speaking of gay marriage, as a Canadian prime minister once said, the government shouldn't be in the bedrooms of private citizens. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that 100%. But again, restrictions, right? I mean, we can say, for example, the government shouldn't be in the bedrooms of private citizens, but we are, right? We say that a 40-year-old can't be in the bedroom with a 12-year-old. So there are still restrictions on those things. So I don't want it to just be that blanket statement, because there are still degrees of that, I guess you could say. Who was more essential to early America, Adams or Jefferson? Oh, wow. I mean, they both had a significant role. I don't know if I could pick one or the other. I think they were both vital in different ways. I think during the Revolution itself, Adams is probably more significant. After the Revolution, Jefferson. Certainly the presidencies, Jefferson's presidency was much more consequential to the United States than Adams. But during the Revolution, I would say Adams was much more consequential. They say history is the greatest teacher. What is one lesson from history you think we still have yet to learn from? That in the end, the reason that great countries fail is that they collapse from the inside. The Roman Empire wasn't torn apart because of outside invaders. It was torn apart by inside. You know, and I think Abraham Lincoln said something to that degree, that if the American experiment fails, that it would be because it would die of a self-inflicted wound. And I think that's been true throughout history. We still haven't learned that lesson. All right. So yeah, super chats. I'm just going to ask you, I'm going to say at this point, if you do a super chat, I can't promise I will get to it by the time we're done, because I'm still like 40 minutes behind on the super chats. I was really check out Metatron YouTube. Okay. I have not seen that channel. Nebraska fan here. See you on October 26th. Yes, sir. That should be a good one. Nebraska just beat Colorado, didn't they? That was a pretty good win for them. Going to Dayton, Ohio to see Hamilton in October. If you're going to Dayton, 100% go to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The National Air Force Museum is in Dayton. So check that out. I think it's at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Definitely check that out. As a Christian, what's your opinion of the film Prince of Egypt? I loved it. I agree 100%. My daughter's a huge fan too. The music was so good. The animation was good. The voice acting was good. I love the Prince of Egypt. Very, very good. If America had a monarchy, which royal house would you prefer to be on the throne? Wow. Well, I mean, I did a video a while back that Useful Charts did, where he talked about if George Washington had been king, who would be king today. And one of the most plausible arguments is that it would be like Robert E. Lee IV right now. But I don't know if I have a preference of who would be on the throne, because I'd want it to be a constitutional monarchy anyway, like the UK has. So I guess the House of Washington would be fine with me. Love your channel. Thanks for the great content. If you could go back in time and witness one specific historical event, what would it be? I think from a safe distance, I'd really like to see what the Battle of Verdun looked like. Because I've been there today and I see what an awful dark place it is to this day. I'm really curious to know what that looked like, especially the opening artillery barrage before that attack. I have to imagine it's like nothing that's ever been experienced on planet Earth. Is it true that the U.S. and UK massively fell out after the Suez Crisis during the Vietnam War? I wouldn't say that the special relationship was not a thing. Things certainly cooled during that time. But to say we massively fell out, I think would be overstating it a little bit. But we cooled. But any relationship has periods of things kind of cooling off and not being as close as they once were. Yes, Crypto, I agree. Thank you for being a member for 2 months. He does get triggered easily, and I think that's a concern. Certainly a concern for me. And it's one of the reasons I hesitate to vote for him. If there was a YouTube video you would recommend that I cover, it's TNO, The Last Days of Europe documentary by JD Media, alternate history. Okay, so I was going to say The New Order, that's a Hearts of Iron 4 mod. Interesting. Not sure if you answered in the regular chat or not, but you're currently at work. Do I ever plan on going to Spain? Yeah, I'd like to get to some of the Napoleonic War battlefields in Spain. My sister went to Spain. She was in Madrid. I think it was Madrid last fall last spring when I was in Italy. She was in Madrid. So yeah, I definitely would like to get to Spain. I was in Florence. Did I see the Perseus with the head of Medusa statue? I did. Florence in general was amazing. I'm going back to Florence in January and again in April. So, incredible city, Florence. Really highly recommend it. General Bonaparte versus General Grant. Bonaparte. Listen, I love Ulysses S. Grant, but he's not Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte is in a handful of all-time great military leaders. Grant's one of the best in American history, but he's not Bonaparte. Not Chickamauga, but a really good book. James Lacey's Washington War, basically World War II Team of Rivals. Ooh, Team of Rivals was a really good book. So I might have to check that out. There's a 5-part series about Satan in the Bible. Yes, I've watched it, and it's fantastic, Gumball fam. Highly recommend it. It was really, really good. I watched it one day when I was doing some work around the house. Really good. Thoughts on the death of James Earl Jones? Long life. I say, first of all, good for him that he got to live that long life. Awesome guy. Love his voice. Love his acting. Probably my favorite role of him is playing the Admiral in some of those Tom Clancy movies like Hunt for Red October. Admiral Greer. Fantastic. What do you think of the U.S. taking on a form of neo-cameralist republicanism? I'd settle for the U.S. going back to what we were in the 1790s before we had political parties. Like, that like 1 or 2 years before we had parties. I should definitely do a reaction to the series. It's really good. Brave New World or 1984? Brave New World. Who's a better president for me, Trump or Biden? Trump. I think Biden's a good guy. I disagree with a lot of his policies. Trump, I would say 80% of his policies I was on board with. Trump's biggest problem was that he was Donald Trump. You recently watched on History Hub video on World War I. Do you think Germany would send Lenin to Russia if the USA didn't enter the war? Yeah, as long as Russia was in the war, I think Germany was going to do that. I think Germany was going to do anything they could to get Russia out of the war. Favorite flag was German Empire. Ooh, good one. German Empire's World War I naval design is an excellent flag. I'm a big fan. Lorain, Ohio was a proposed target for bombing raids in World War II. That's crazy. That's right outside of Cleveland. Who is my favorite Civil War general from a border state? Buford. John Buford from Kentucky. Big fan. Any advice for people wanting to write a novel? I'm not a fiction person. That's really more my daughter's area. She's good at that kind of stuff. But I would say I think historical fiction is great. I would say I love stories that are written about fictional characters caught up in the midst of great real life events. Think Master and Commander, Far Side of the World, right? Fictional story set in real life events and really, really compelling story. So I would do something like that. Would ever do more reaction videos? Operations. Actually, I was just thinking about the operations room the other day and wanting to do some more stuff on their content. Chili Chef, thank you for that. Who's my favorite? Oh, you already asked that. I got that one. As someone from Edinburgh about to move to the States, what country do you think has a better political system, the UK or the US? UK. I like the UK because I like constitutional monarchy. I like the stability of a head of state that doesn't change based on the political parties. Parkinator was wondering what your opinion on Shelby Foote. Do I agree with some historians that he was a bad guy and a lost cause apologist? So here's my thing about Shelby Foote. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's a product of the lost cause because he grew up in that. So is he a little lost causey? Yeah. But he's not lost causey to the point where he's blinded by it, or he was blinded by it. First of all, he was a fantastic storyteller with a great voice. I don't think he was blinded by lost cause ideology. I think there's a hint of it just because he grew up in the South and he grew up with that. And so that informs his biases, that we all have biases. So I think he's biased a little bit, but not to the degree that it makes what he wrote unreadable, I guess is a way to put it. And I think he's a phenomenal writer. Do I have any knowledge on the U.S. Marines during the Civil War? Very little. I mean, I know they were involved, for example, in the early stages of not the Pacific, with New Orleans and with Vicksburg early on. Beyond that, not really a whole lot because it was a pretty small. They did have an impact, but very little. Yes, actually, I've toyed with some ideas for a first Minnesota song already. So there will be one at some point. I've actually submitted to Sabaton repeatedly, asking them to do a song on the first Minnesota. Do I agree that the late 1800s eras of American politics is really underrated? I do agree. A lot of pretty important changes happened then with civil service reform, with the trust busting that went on. So I think it's an underrated period of history for sure. It's also when the United States starts to kind of become an imperialist power, especially with McKinley, but to a lesser degree with some others. I mean, even under Grant had a deal in place for the United States to acquire what we now know as the Dominican Republic, but it wasn't ratified by the Senate. So we were trying to do that stuff even then. Would I ever do a video about the Freemasons? Yeah, that's definitely a topic that would be worth covering. That would be an interesting lens through which to view history. The Rookie, you asked, what's my favorite cereal? I go in in waves, right? Like for a while, I'll be really into one and then it'll change. For a while, it was Honeycomb. Right now, it's Captain Crunch. Can I please do podcasts again? I appreciate that. The only issue with the podcast was it was a lot of time. It took a lot of my time, and I found that my time was better used on other things. If I ever get to the place where I can do it, or I can maybe even just convert some of my scripts that I do for some of my original content into podcasts, I'll do that. All right, I'm going to try to get through these last of these super chats. The short-lived California Republic. I think that's an interesting time in history, the 1840s and 1850s and westward expansion. I think we could probably cover that topic in the midst of a larger discussion about westward expansion during that time. So Gumball Fan, I think you mentioned that one already. It is. I don't know if I'd do a reaction to it. If I did, it would be for VTH Extra. Thoughts on Longstreet? One of the best Southern generals. Gets a bad rap by the Lost Causers because he became a Republican after the war. And so they don't like him. Who do I think will win the national championship? Are you talking about football? Clearly, Ohio State will win. If not Ohio State, probably Georgia again. But it's going to be interesting because we've got a 12-team playoff now. So I think it'll be fun to watch regardless. Are the Baggies going up this season? Heck, yes, they are. We had a fantastic transfer window. We're undefeated right now. My predictions for the 3 promotions, I think the 2 automatic promotions are going to be Leeds and West Brom. And I think the playoff promotion is going to be Sunderland this year. That's my prediction. We'll see you next year in the Premier League, Villa fan. I know as history fans, everyone needs to, and everyone talks about Waterloo, but War and Peace is a masterpiece. I agree. War and Peace is really, really good. And it covers a lot of topics that Waterloo doesn't in terms of focusing on the Napoleonic Wars. Alyssa, thank you for that. People say modern politics is ruthless, but didn't Jefferson? Yeah, so Jefferson, what happened was, I don't think it was directly said by Jefferson. Back then, they didn't say the stuff directly. Their surrogate said it for them, or they said it under a pseudonym in a newspaper. And so on Jefferson's behalf, one of his surrogates in the newspaper was probably, what's the guy's name? James Callender. It was probably Callender, I think it was, said that Adams had a hermaphroditic character. Basically that he was like lukewarm is what he was saying. He wasn't really strong like a man, and he wasn't really committed to being like a female. He was a hermaphroditic character. Yeah, so politics has always been nasty, and it was very nasty back then. Didn't one candidate claim his opponent died? Yeah, I think that might have happened too. That's a great topic. You're right. I agree. Before dropping out of college during the year of crap, 2020, you were roommates with a Muslim guy from Morocco. We got along greatly. Yeah, and I think most people would find that kind of thing to be the case. Think of the people that you're most likely to not like because of their ideology, their beliefs, their lifestyle. Go out and meet some of those people, and you're probably going to be surprised. I have lost track of the number of people who have said to me, you are nothing like I expected a conservative Christian to be like. That's because you probably only know about the ones that are really loud and obnoxious on social media, and they don't represent most of us. And that's true for all ideologies, all belief systems. Any video you would redo in hindsight? Yeah, absolutely. I think you talk to absolutely anybody who makes videos for YouTube. Certainly all the people that in my circles that I talk to regularly, we all say that you go and look back like more than a year ago and you cringe watching your old videos. That's absolutely true for me. For me personally, in terms of reaction videos, I think the one that I'd most like to redo would be my very first reaction to Mr. Beat, which was one of his presidential lists, like top 10 best or worst presidents. And I was overly critical of him and made a lot of assumptions about his biases, some of which I think turned out to be accurate, some of which were not. And now that I've gotten to know him personally and I know the kind of person he is, I think I wish I could take back some of the things I said in that one. What countries am I most excited to visit in Europe that I haven't been to? Czechia, for sure. Going to go to Prague next year, so I'm excited about that. I'm going to Ireland in November, and I'm really excited about that. Switzerland and Poland. I think you know what? I'll give one answer. Poland is probably number one of the countries I haven't been to yet that I'm really excited to go to. But I want to visit Switzerland. I'm looking forward to visiting Ireland. A lot of places I still high on my list I haven't been to yet. Your great uncle was A.P. Hill. That's awesome. That's a really cool connection to history. Fantastic division commander, one of the best division commanders in the Confederate Army. I think maybe in a little over his head as a corps commander, and really unfortunate to have gotten killed in the last week of the war. Mellow Vic, thank you for that. David Whitfield, hello from Oz. Very cool. I can't continue my GTCW career campaign because that computer died. I got a new computer and had to start fresh. I will do another campaign, but I lost that one, unfortunately. It wasn't backed up to the cloud, and it should have been. It was the tree that almost started a war. Okay, good to know. Last Words of Great Thinkers by Fire of Learning. Interesting. All right, let me take a look at that. Take a picture of that. All right, we're in the home stretch here on the super chats. Favorite testament to human stupidity is that for years there was only one tree in the vast Tenere Desert in Niger. Yes. Did I do a video on that? Didn't I do a video on that? Either I did a video on that or I watched a video on that. I'm trying to remember. if I maybe just watched a video about that topic. Yeah, that's nuts. It's absolutely a nuts story. Oh, no, I know why I've talked about that story. I can tell you this. So a lot of you guys know that I have gone to New York to record for the History Channel. And that tree is one of the stories I talked about in the show that I recorded for the History Channel. We covered a lot of different topics, and that was one of them. So in November, you'll see me on the History Channel talking about that tree. That's what it was. It took me a minute to remember where I had talked about that story. Greetings from Ontario. We play more Paradox games. Yes, I definitely do. I play them all the time in my free time, but I'll definitely do more on the gaming channel. Lewis and Clark. Yes, that is the content I want to cover more for sure. In Warsaw, we have Wilson and Hoover Squares. I'm not surprised. Wilson's much more popular in foreign countries than he is in the United States. And Hoover, too, for some important reasons, I think, for both of them. No, I'm not familiar with the Israel conspiracy with the JFK assassination. On the topic of Oppenheimer, do I think he was an actual communist? No, he wasn't an actual communist. He had connections to communists, and that was bad enough at that time. So I agree with you. Do I think people like you who dislike both candidates should vote? It's up to you. I mean, you use your vote as you see fit. For me personally, I can't in good conscience vote for either of the two major candidates. That's my personal. I'm not going to tell anybody else what to do. It's up to you what you decide to do with your vote. Who's my favorite historical person? John Paul Jones. Yeah, cool. Have you seen the pictures of John Paul Jones's body? They exhumed him like 100 years ago. It's crazy. For me personally, probably Ulysses S. Grant or Theodore Roosevelt, one of those two. All right. Hello again from Norway. Favorite poets and or philosophers. Yeah, I don't read a lot of like novels and fiction. I'm not into fiction very much. So cultural readings in the standpoint that if they're nonfiction, like looks at the culture, sure. But I don't really read a lot of fiction. So I'll look at history through different lenses in that way, but not specifically stories that come out of that time period. Do I think post-Civil War literature is relevant to understanding the Civil War? Absolutely. Everything's connected. The stuff that came before and the stuff that came after is essential in understanding what happened in between. All right. Define yourself as conservative. What would be the core values that give you those political beliefs? My religious beliefs are a big component of that. They're part of my worldview. I think my worldview is partially my religious beliefs, but also it's fiscally speaking. I probably am more conservative fiscally than I am in any other aspect, and that's not really informed by my religion. So I tend to err on the side of less government intervention, less government spending. I'm not somebody who thinks the government shouldn't tax people or that the government shouldn't offer services. I just think it should be within reason, and I think that it is a little too much right now. So I'm very fiscally conservative, probably socially less so. Currently live near Harrisonburg, Virginia. Would I cover the Shannon? Yes. Actually, Turner Ashby is a cousin of mine. My fifth great grandfather's name was Garner Ashby and is like an uncle of his. So yeah, I've actually been talking about doing a Shenandoah Valley campaign series at some point in the near future. David Mitchell's book, Unruly. Yes, I have it downstairs. I haven't read it yet. I have the book, though. They sent it to me free. It was really cool. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to read that. I think Dan Jones's books on those time periods are great. His book on the Plantagenets, his book on the Wars of the Roses. I'm going to pick up his Henry V here real soon. I love Dan Jones. Can I give my take on Trump? From one of your progressive fans who shares a passion for history, I consider your conservative views with the highest regards. I appreciate that. Where do Republicans go from here post-Trump? Depends on if he wins or not. I think if he loses, then that'll probably spell the end of the Trump dominance of the Republican Party. If he wins, you're going to see a lot of people leave the Republican Party forever, I think. You might see that even if either way. I think you're seeing a civil war for the heart and soul of the Republican Party right now, and I think the Republican Party doesn't know who it is yet. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. My take on Trump is that during his presidency, I thought more often than not, I agreed with the policies of his administration, but I thought the worst thing about his administration was him. I just wish the guy would shut up. I just wish the guy would listen to his advisors. I wish the guy would, I don't want him to stop being Trump and, say what you think, but think a little bit more often before you speak. And I don't know if he's capable of that. I think he's just too emotional for me and too easily baited by people. Who do I think will win the national championship? It's Ohio State. Shut up. I don't want to hear about that, Garrison. Wide left. I have not visited the USS Texas, but I do want to get down there and visit it for sure. What presidential election would you change if you could? 1912, 100%. I would actually have TR not run in 1912 and have Taft win re-election. Any war movie, all of them are inaccurate to a degree. Waterloo's really good, though. It's pretty darn accurate. Waterloo's the first one that comes to mind for me as far as accuracy goes. What is my official job title? YouTube is what I do for a living. So there is no job title, right? First of all, I'm a professional genealogist in that I get paid to do people's genealogy. So by definition, I'm professional. And from that standpoint, then I get paid to talk about history and educate people on history. So I'm also a professional historian. All a historian is somebody who learns about history and then shares that with other people. There's nothing deeper than that. This idea that this title historian is reserved for people who have written a bunch of books or teach in a university, that is not by definition what a historian is. Many of you who are in this chat right now are historians because you teach other people about history. That's really all it is. It's nothing more complicated than that. So what is my official job title? I do YouTube full time. So that's, I guess there isn't one. What's the most important issue for me this election? Foreign policy. Navigating the Russia and Ukraine thing, navigating the Israel-Gaza thing, navigating where NATO goes from here in the 21st century. I think foreign policy, big time. Thoughts on this year's Super Bowl halftime show? I stopped watching them a long time ago. To me, the last really good Super Bowl halftime show was U2 in 2002. There have been other ones that were good. Don't get me wrong, but I really just, I don't really care about it that much. TJ3 history, aviation history, very cool. I'll have to keep that in mind. Were my Reb ancestors listed as color? I had a couple of ancestors who were in the Confederate Army and they were white. My ancestors who were people of color were not did not fight in the Civil War. My great grandmother was mulatto and her mother was black. Saw a video of actor James Woods. Yes, he did talk about that. And you know what? I don't want to share too much about this because I don't think it's something he talks about a lot, but many of you know that I got to spend some time with Martin Sheen back in April in Gettysburg. Amazing guy. If you didn't hear me share that story, unbelievably kind and generous human being. And I will never tolerate a bad word spoken about that man. I love that man, and I will always love that man. He was so amazing, above and beyond what you could expect from a celebrity of his stature. Plus, Jed Bartlett's like the best president ever, isn't he? But he was sharing a story about how he was going to reprise his role of Robert E. Lee in Gods and Generals. And because of his work with the West Wing, he ended up not being able to do it. But had he been able to do it, he was scheduled to be on the flight that hit the Pentagon, and ended up not being on it because he didn't take the job in Gods and Generals. So I thought that was pretty crazy too. But I did see James Woods talking about that. That was pretty crazy. My thoughts on King Charles II, in over his head. I mean, yeah, that was a mess of a time period anyway, in the aftermath of Charles I's beheading, and then James II and Charles II, and you have the Glorious Revolution, and I think just in over his head. Best book on Reconstruction. Wow. I honestly, I can't think of one off the top of my head. So if anybody's got any recommendations on that one. I'm in favor of the Electoral College. Would I still support a Nebraska or Maine model as applied to every state? If that's what the states choose to do, that would be fine with me. I think that would be okay. I want to visit Norway. I don't know. I don't have a plan in place, so I haven't really started doing research into where I would go. Heck, I'm going to Ireland in November, and I still don't even know what I'm doing in Ireland when I go. So that's kind of how far ahead I am. I'm still thinking about going to England this coming week. So I don't know for sure yet. Visit the remains of the Atlant in Denmark. Interesting. Okay. New member, thank you for that. All right, let's wrap up these last few here. Coke or Pepsi? Definitely Pepsi. 100% Pepsi, which is sometimes hard to find when I'm in Europe, which is sad. You said on streams you will not vote for Trump. Is it because of some change in my views about him? I wouldn't say it's because I'm sick of him. It's more evidenced by what you saw in the debate. I'm not comfortable with him as president, knowing how easily manipulated he is emotionally. If Kamala Harris can bait him like that in a debate, what is a guy like Putin going to do to him? And so that concerns me a lot. Yes, so TJ3 history, I think you said that already, so I'll check that out. Any plans on New Campaign Trail 1972? Yeah, a couple of people recommended that one to me. That's definitely one we'll check out at some point. When's the next? You know what? Nobody has sent me anything lately, Star Sailor. So I guess I'll have to do one where I open some stuff that I bought, and then maybe that'll encourage more people to do that. Angelique, how you doing? Ned Sizemore is an ancestor of mine. It is old Ned, yes, on my maternal grandmother's family. The funny thing is, 3 of my 4 grandparents, their parents were born in Kentucky. So, in other words, 6 of my 8 great-grandparents were born in Kentucky. The one great-grandparent set that wasn't born in Kentucky, that were in Ohio, my great-grandparents, it's on one of those lines that I go back to Kentucky in the 1700s and then to Ned Sizemore. Yeah. So yeah, it is old Ned that as my ancestor died in 1780, 1781, something like that. Emily, thank you for that. And last question, is there a particular historical site in Massachusetts or New Hampshire? I love Lexington and Concord. The Adams houses are really, really worth your time in Quincy. Definitely check those out. Love those. Hello, cousin Angelique. That's awesome. Very cool. All right. I'm going to wrap it up, guys. I got to go make tacos for my kids for dinner. Apologies if I didn't get to your question. We'll definitely be streaming. I'll be streaming from Cambridge in England next weekend with some of my friends. My friend Marcel, and he's from the Netherlands. My friend Sean, who you've seen before, and Marcel you saw before as well. My friend Rob from History in Your Hand, and my friend Vashik from Prague will be with us for that stream. So we'll see you next week from Cambridge in East England. Thanks for watching, guys.